Well, good morning, everybody. It is 8:30 on this lovely webinar Wednesday. Welcome. I'm so glad to see so many of your faces, and we certainly miss you here at the Chamber. Just as a reminder, we did go ahead and mute your microphones. I see you're all still muted, so you already followed direction one. Yay. Just keep those muted until we prompt you later on when we have our Q&A session. But for now, I am going to turn it over to Melinda Torreson, our wonderful chairman of the board here at the Pasadena Chamber, to get us started.
Oh, thanks, Erin. I appreciate that. And just shout out to you, Erin, for all that you're doing, keeping us engaged and communicating through all the social media platforms here at the Chamber. And of course, we do encourage each one of you, please, stay in touch with our website as Erin is constantly, it seems like hour by hour, updating our COVID-19 resource page as well. So that's what our mission and our passion and our vision is here for the Chamber, is to be a resource and to connect. And since we can't connect in person and face-to-face, we're doing our part behind the scenes. As all of you know, we're just in unprecedented times, uncharted waters, and we're literally, we are building the platform and the roadmap as we speak. But it is my pleasure to have all of you here on the webinar. I don't know if you know, but last Friday we actually hosted our first virtual coffee and conversation, which was just a true treasure to those of us who are extroverts and have to see people and hear from people. So it was really just a great venue to be able to connect and to really hear from each person that was on the call as to what they're experiencing, just personally, as well as the organizations that they represent. So we do encourage you to, and we are going to be hosting another one this Friday. So we do encourage you to jump on the website and register for our virtual coffee and conversation that is scheduled from 8:30 to 9:30. So out of that platform, we did have recommendations for our presentation that we're actually going to be hosting today, thanks to Heather, on the subject of self-care. So that's where we're really looking to you, the member, and our friends, to share with us what are your needs at this moment in time. And so we hope to be bringing on a regular basis webinars such as this. So we do encourage each one of you, please, go to the chat and share with, I believe Julianne's on the chat, please share just, ideas of what you would like to see, and really just what your personal needs are. So we do encourage that. But it is my pleasure to introduce my friend Heather Lambert, and hopefully each of you were able to jump on the Heather Lambert bio, which is, there's just not enough words and not enough time to really share just what an amazing gift each of you have in front of you today, and the individual that you're going to be hearing from. But Heather is, as y'all probably know, the founder of Clearhope Counseling Center. She is the founder of Clearhope Counseling and Wellness Center, as well as the Clearhope Training. And so she, of course, is a certified teacher and a counselor, and made her way through several of the school districts here in our area, and really became just a shining star and an advocate for mental health. Her expertise is definitely trauma, and she can lead people through that. If you don't think this woman has enough to do in the business world or realm, she is a mother of 5 children. Yes, 5 children. Right now, probably having to be the principal and the homeschool teacher and all that good stuff. But she's also a wife. She's a pastor's wife. Her husband actually has a church here in our community. And one thing that I highlighted on her bio is just really what an amazing consultant, advisor, advocate for mental health. She has been called upon in numerous school districts, not just in our region, but around the state, The governor actually called upon her before this COVID-19 started taking effect, but to serve on a special task force for our state for mental health. So I'm going to turn it over to you, Heather, but we just are so thankful that you're a friend. She's also one of our Impact Leadership 2020 class. So she is just a force. That's all I got to say. So if you want somebody advocating for mental health and sharing about self-care, this is the person that you want to be hearing from today. So Heather, I'll turn it over to you. And again, just thank you so much for who you are and all you do and what you bring. We really appreciate you.
Well, thank you, Melinda. It is really my pleasure to be a part of Impact Pasadena and just to learn about a lot of the great resources in our city and that our chamber offers. And today, I appreciate the intro, but I just come to you as your neighbor and as your friend, just wanting to spend a few minutes doing a mental health check-in with you, our viewers, and then encourage you to take the information that you gained today back into your homes and your community to check on those that you care about. So we'll spend just about the next 15 to 20 minutes together kind of looking at some mental health check-in guidelines and some coping skills that can be helpful during this really difficult time. And then we'll have a few minutes for questions and answers and thoughts from you, the participants. So if you have a cool thought, idea, or a question, if you'll check that at the end of my presentation, you will have a chance to share your question, your thought, your idea. We really do want to hear from you, our neighbors right here in Pasadena, Texas. So let's look at some challenges that we're facing during COVID-19 and this time of social isolation and ways that we can really begin to cope with the challenges. So to make it simple, I'm going to talk to you today about 5 words that begin with the letter M. And don't worry about taking notes unless you just want to do that, because you will have access to this PowerPoint and these slides and some additional resources. And I'll show you how you can find those before the end of our time together. So the first M that I want to talk to you about today is the M of media. This is actually a coping skill if we can choose to limit the time that we spend on media. You know, I know this is a rabbit hole that we can fall down, and we do have a lot of time in isolation. So we spend time on our phones and tablets and computers and television. But if you've noticed, there's a lot of confusion being reported in the media right now. You can watch one station and hear one report, then another station and hear a different report. And the conflict in the information that we're getting really does cause an increase in our anxiety. The reality is that this is an unprecedented event. No one knows exactly what will happen next. No one knows exactly the very best way to face this pandemic, to fight it off, to ward it off. So what you're hearing are a lot of different ideas, thoughts, and opinions. And a lot of those are really informed, and a lot of those are not. So to cope with the anxiety of this unique time, I really recommend that you limit your time and exposure to media. Limit the time and exposure of your children to media and social media, and recognize that there is a lot of conflicting information, and we can just normalize that. So the very first coping skill is the coping skill, the M word is media. Think about limiting that. The second M that I want to spend a little bit of time talking about is the M of mindfulness. And mindfulness practices are not new. It's just the idea that we get to decide what we want to think about. And I know that sounds like a really simple idea, but the impact is tremendous. So let's walk through a mindfulness practice for just a minute. You'll see on your screen that I'm asking you first and foremost to be aware of your thoughts. And for a lot of us, this is a brand new practice. We'll just blaze through our day, thoughts come to us, you know, millions in a day, and we're not very mindful of what we're thinking about. So the coping skill of mindfulness really involves becoming more aware of our thoughts. As you begin to recognize and be more aware of your thoughts, then you can be aware of the emotions that the thoughts are producing. You know, an emotion is really just a thought paired with a sensation somewhere in our body. So if you think about it, if we use the phrase, "Oh, did I hurt your feelings?" That word feelings is talking about an emotion, but we use the word feeling because we're talking about a sensation somewhere in our body. So an emotion is quite simply that, a thought paired with a sensation. So when I feel angry, I might notice that my face feels hot or red and my heart beats really quickly, and I'm having a thought about something that caused anger. So mindfulness practices means first I recognize my thought, second I recognize the emotion or the impact that it's having on my body, and then third I spend a minute to contemplate the experience. Is this thought paired with the emotion or sensation creating a positive or negative experience for me? Am I enjoying this thought? Is it helping me feel better? Is it relieving my stress? Is it causing a preferred mental state? Or is it causing pain, anxiety, or an increase in stress? The coolest part about mindfulness is if our experience is negative, we have the power to change that experience through mindfulness practices. So let's just do a quick practice together, a mindfulness exercise. And I'm just going to ask you to think of a preferred thought. And it can be anything. It can be a picture of a grandchild. It can be a vacation that you went on. It can be the favorite restaurant that you're missing enjoying a dinner in. It can be a card. It can even be just the memory of a conversation. Take just a minute and grab a preferred thought, something that you really enjoy thinking about. Does everybody have something? Great. So now I just want you to really dive into that memory. Think about what was it about that space and time that you really enjoyed? What made it special? What makes it preferred? And as you begin to really dive into that preferred thought, I want you to notice what you're thinking about and the emotion that that's producing. Check in with your body. What are you feeling right now? Do you notice a feeling of warmth coming over you? Do you notice relaxation? Do you notice that your heart begins to feel eager or excited? Are you anticipating the return of that type of an experience again? And then as you do that, just check in with your mental state right now through this mindfulness practice. Is this experience more preferred? And that is the mindfulness practice. You can do that again and again and again throughout the day. And in the time of this chronic stress, because we've been in this environment of stay home, stay safe, and quarantine for quite an extended period of time, in this environment, we're going to need to employ mindfulness practices and take really great care of ourselves. And that means we must direct our thoughts. We get to choose what we want to think about. A lot of times our thoughts can begin to be obsessive or compulsive. We can let our thoughts run forward. Thoughts running forward create anxiety. We're worried about the future. And we can create stories that cause so much of a negative emotion because we create the story in our mind and then we believe it, and our experience becomes that of if it actually were happening. But anxiety is just a future thought that creates a present stressor. So a mindfulness practice is to really stay in the present. Now, if we move backward, so into the past, and we begin to think about the way things used to be or the way things were, that can create the opposite of anxiety. That can create depression. And of course, we're missing a lot of things that maybe we even took for granted before COVID-19. But a mindfulness practice is try not to move forward and create scenarios in the future that create anxiety, but also try not to move backward and create or visit memories and longings that create depression. Instead, we want to stay right here in the present. In the present, do you have everything that you need? In the present, are you making it? Are you surviving? In the present, can you choose what you want to think about? Can you give yourself a break? Can you give yourself some encouragement? So that's a mindfulness practice. And then the last mindfulness practice that I want to mention just for a minute is the idea of pendulating. If you've ever been angry and somebody says, calm down, you're not like, oh, wow, thank you. Why didn't I think of that? I'll calm down right now. Thanks so much for giving me that word. That doesn't actually work. As a matter of fact, if you're in a relationship or having an interaction with someone who's very upset, telling them to calm down might actually have the opposite impact and make them even more upset. So we don't want to just try and negate our emotions by telling ourselves not to feel that way. Don't feel worried. Don't stress out. That's not super helpful, just like telling somebody to calm down when they're angry isn't super helpful. Instead, we want to practice pendulation. So if I'm really angry and upset, and I don't like that feeling of being angry and upset, I can choose to pendulate over from that anger and think about something that is a preferred thought or makes me happy. When I think about something that makes me happy or even something that's humorous, that can decrease my anger. We even call that comedic relief. The idea is I can relieve that strong emotion by employing some humor. And so there are a lot of funny memes and jokes that you can see on social media. We all have little family jokes that we're making right now to help decrease the stress level. But to pendulate away from worry, which is really an emotion that we're all experiencing right now, we're worried about our health, the health of those that we love. We're worried about financial stressors and pressures in our community. And that worry can grow bigger and bigger and bigger. But do you know the opposite emotion from worry is actually hope? And hope is my very favorite word in the English language. My favorite definition of hope is just the idea that hope is the belief that something good may happen and the intent to make it so. So when our worry gets really big, we can simply pendulate from that worry over and begin to think about hope. What are our hopes and dreams? What are things that we're looking forward to? What is the source of our hope? And that we can begin to notice will decrease the worry and move us back to a state of homeostasis. So we've talked about limiting media. We talked about mindfulness practices. The third M is move. And move means exactly what it sounds like. It means get up and move. You know, we probably don't realize just how sedentary we've become. We might be working from home, telecommuting. We might be sitting in a chair that's not as ergonomic as our work chair. We might be at home at the kitchen table helping our kiddos with their homework. We might be in front of the TV watching the news hour after hour, or watching Netflix or binge watching Disney Plus. The reality is our bodies house our emotions. And we need to get up and move at least once every 30 minutes to discharge the energy. So I'm going to ask you to connect to your body for just a minute. Let's just do a body scan. And I really encourage you to do this every single day. But let's do a body scan right now. We'll start at the top of our head and work slowly all the way down our body until we get to the tips of our toes. So start at your head right now. Are you noticing any tension, any headache, eye strain, any pressure or problems in your sinuses, any tension in your jaw? A lot of people hold their tension or stress in their jaws. What about your neck muscles? Do you notice that your neck muscles are tight or tense? Your shoulders, a lot of us hold tension in our shoulders. Are you holding tension right now in your shoulders, your back? Is there any tightness or heat radiating any place in your back? What about your chest? Is your chest feeling tight, stressed, anxious? Your stomach, have you been having stomach problems or issues, upset stomach in the last few days? As you move down through your lower back and hips, are you noticing any exhaustion or tightness or tension or heat or cold sensations? What about your legs? Do you notice that when you feel anxious, your legs kind of tend to shake, or you fidget a little bit more? You hold that pressure in your extremities, your limbs. You need to keep your hands moving. You need to keep your feet moving to discharge that energy. What about tension down through your shins and your calves, your ankles, all the way to the tips of your toes? The reality is that your body can really take on a lot of the pressures of stress and anxiety during this time. And a way that you can release the pressure is through the body scan, similar to what we just did, just checking in with our body and choosing to use the power of our minds to relax our muscles, to relax our body systems, to breathe deeply in our nose and out our mouth. It's amazing the healing power of a deep breath. Just take a deep breath with me right now, in your nose and out your mouth. Great. It might have been a while since you stopped to do that, but it really does release the pressure and discharge the enemy. You know, we're all kind of in a pressure cooker right now. And what that pressure cooker does is it holds a lot of internal stress and pressure and anxiety and heat. And every single one of us is longing for the day when we can take the lid off that pressure cooker and return to normal life. But the reality is we can't do that right now. So instead, just like a pressure cooker, we can use that release valve to let out a little bit of pressure every few minutes or every 30 minutes throughout the day by moving our bodies to discharge some of the stress and negative energy. The next M I want to talk to you about is messaging others. We're socially isolated, but that does not mean that we can't connect. I'm super proud of each of you for taking the time out of your day to connect with us here. It really shows, you know, I always say in my counseling practice that the healthiest people on the planet end up on our sofas. And it really shows the level of health that you're engaging with right now, that you're willing to take time out of your day to connect to some self-care. Thanks so much for caring so well for yourself and your community. But messaging really means that because we're socially isolated, we have to be a bit more intentional about connecting with others. And that includes using our hunches, our feelings, our senses to think about who it is that might need care, who might need us to reach out and connect. I'm really going to encourage you to think about who might need to hear from you, and then to be bold enough to cry out when you need help. Call up a friend, text message a friend, message a friend on social media and just say, hey, I'm not doing great. Do you have a minute to talk or a minute to connect? Definitely engage in those practices and care well for yourself and care well for others. One quick thing I want to mention about messaging and connecting with others is a lot of our children count on the eyes and ears of educators in the community to keep them safe every day. And because we're not able to go to school and our kiddos aren't able to go to school, we need to be the eyes and the ears. And each of us uniquely is connected to a number of people in our community. If you're having concerns about people in our community, one of the things that I want to ask you to do is act on that concern. Reach out. Do not be afraid to ask the question, are you safe? Is there anything that you need? How can I support or help you during this time? A great coping skill is messaging and connecting with others. Then the last M I want to talk to you about is meditating and praying. You know, we're super blessed in this community to have great faith traditions. We have lots of people in our faith community that we have access to. We have online church, we have churches that we can call, we have faith leaders that we can connect to. We also do not want to forsake the idea of prayer and meditating on timeless truths, scriptures that we maybe memorized when we were children, songs that we sang in vacation Bible school, just those timeless truths. And then I love the idea of vulnerability during prayer, the idea of meditating on those timeless truths, and then being vulnerable in prayer, taking all of our requests and our needs, the fears that are deep down within our heart to our God is really a great coping skill. Throughout all of history and historical studies, all the empirical data and research shows that prayer and faith practices do decrease our stress and anxiety. So I want to encourage you to engage in the coping skill of meditation, meditating on those timeless truths, and prayer. I do have some resources that I want to share with you. And again, those 5 M's are great. But if you get to the point where you're feeling like the pressure's too high and you start to have thoughts about suicide, hurting yourself, then I encourage you to get the help that you need. This is the suicide hotline. I encourage every single one of you to save this in your contacts for your phone in case you need it someday or someone that you're connected with needs this as a resource. You can also access the suicide prevention website right here. You can text HOME to 741741 to connect to those resources. KSBJ, our own local Houston radio station, has a 24-hour-a-day prayer line. And then, of course, if you need one-on-one help in a therapeutic environment, Clearhope Counseling and Clearhope Counseling and Wellness is here to support you in our community. And then there are a few resources that I have listed on my website, clearhopecounseling.com, that you can connect with right now, including if you're concerned about your child. There is an info sheet on does my child need to see a counselor? There's some trauma-informed guidelines, some do's and don'ts, things that you definitely want to try to avoid during this high-stress time, and then things that you might also want to do. And then Mental Health America has a plethora of resources on their website. So if you visit my website at clearhopewellness.com and just click COVID-19 resources, all of the resources that I've shared with you today, including this PowerPoint, will be there for you. The most important thing to remember right now during the midst of this is that you are not alone. You might be isolated, but you are not alone. Help is available, and there are resources through your Pasadena Chamber and through Clearhope Counseling and website and the other hotlines and great resources that our community has available for us. So don't be afraid to reach out and connect to the help that you need. I'll turn it back over to you, Miss Melinda.
Yeah, thank you so much for all those resources. I personally appreciate the reaching out list and all the resources you've made available on your website as well. So thank you so much for your presentation. And so we now open it up to the audience. This is your time and opportunity to ask Heather any questions that you might have.
Microphones are all. Hey Heather.
Yeah.
Will you email me that after we get off?
So I couldn't quite hear the question, but all these resources are available on my website, and then I'll also email those to the chamber so they can add it to their resource page.
Perfect. Yeah, that was my question. So.
Great. Anything else? Talk to us, guys. What are you doing to take care of yourself during this time?
Hear me?
Okay, does anybody have a question?
Oh, now, can you hear me?
Yes, ma'am.
Oh, okay. Well, I was just going to say what I do in the morning is I ride my bike. I find it's the best time. I don't get squished by the cars now. So I feel safe doing that. And
Yeah.
then I try to work in my garden. So I found since I started doing that, it does take the edge off because it is, you know, pretty scary times. But, you know, as I started doing that more and more, making that part of my daily routine, I do feel, you know, a lot better since doing that. But that's all I had to say. I was just sharing.
I love that, Barbara. Thanks for reminding us. A lot of those hobbies that we can still engage with. I heard somebody's dog barking, and pets can definitely be a great coping skill. Thanks for pointing out gardening or being outside, of course, exercise. I love that. Thanks for reminding us of that. Anybody else have a cool idea to share?
Okay, so I gave you all the ability to unmute yourself because when I unmuted you all, it was a little chaotic. So if you do have a question, unmute yourself and feel free to ask.
So I've been, I have my dog and I have my 3 cats. So they're all over me all day long. And I take my dog out for a walk at least probably 4 times a day to
Good.
get out of the house. I also have my gardening and all that other stuff that I do to unwind because just like everybody else, we're all worried about family and friends. I'm a New York City native, so we have a lot of family and friends who are going through it, including my mother-in-law who tested positive for COVID-19.
Oh,
But she
she's in
got
our
out of the
prayers.
hospital and she's lost her fever. So we're just very hopeful there. But I also unfortunately had a traumatic experience right at the beginning of this by being held up at gunpoint 2 houses down from my house. So it was certainly not a fun experience.
Yeah.
But I'm just, and I honestly, I've had a therapist for 5.5 years. He's from up in New York. And when I moved down here, I didn't want to lose him because I'm sure, as you know, Heather, once you find that person, the therapist that you connect with, you don't want to lose that because you find the person you had that relationship with. And so I've been working with him, thank goodness. And I honestly recommend to everybody on here, whether it's through Clearhope or through your own, talk to your therapist. I can't even tell you how many times my therapist has helped me through quite a
Great.
few things. And I just, it's hard on all of us right now. We're worried about our families. I talked to my mom yesterday, and my mom and dad are obviously at home. They're in Connecticut, but it's all that tri-state area that's really suffering. And my mom couldn't get toilet paper and tissue. And and I was going to ship some up to her, but I found a friend who's going to go buy some and drop it off for
Yay.
them. So
Awesome.
this is what I'm finding is that people, regardless of all the negativity that's out there, I can't focus on that because I'll soak that in. There's people who are actually doing the right thing out there too, and it's just trying to
Yay.
focus on those people. I'll stop rambling now. I just wanted to put some words.
No,
Aaron knows I could ramble for hours. I'll shush now.
That's great information, Jeffrey. I think you reminded us of how great pets can be, and walking your dog outside is great. The cats are super sensory. If your cats are lap kittens, that'll let you
Oh,
hold
yeah.
them. And then the idea of connection and supporting and helping others really does help our own mental health and wellness. And I love how Jeffrey said, just being reminded that there is a lot of negativity, but that doesn't crowd out the greatness of humanity when we can show up as a community to help support one another. And I love it that you mentioned that COVID-19 is here and present, but many of us, I'm so sorry about your traumatic event, but that reminds us that many of us already had traumatic stressors in our lives, and COVID-19 just kind of lays on top of that. It didn't make the other stressors go away. It's just a new stressor to deal with. So I love the idea. I'm so glad that you're connected to a therapist, and I love the shout out for therapeutic care. I see my own therapist, and I can't imagine making it through without her. And if you do need therapeutic support, at Clearhope Counseling, we'll definitely help connect you to one of our therapists or another great therapist in our community as a resource. So do reach out. Thanks for that, Jeffrey.
Thank you, Heather.
Anybody else have a quick thought, idea, some advice for us, or a question?
Thank goodness Christina's sitting here beside me because I'm like, I cannot operate your laptop computer. So
Hey, I have a question on the chat.
Yeah.
From Greta. What advice do you have for teens?
Yeah, thanks, Greta, for that question. The reality is teens are at one of the most social times of their life, and so they're really struggling with the inability to connect like they're accustomed to at this time. So I do suggest, it's super important. I know a lot of us engage in a lot of healthy practices, but right now we can really give ourselves a little bit of a break. I've been telling parents all across our city that now is not the time to enact strict limitations around screen time or chatting with friends online. It's not the time to limit our food. I think we're going to have a fitness challenge after the coronavirus because we're all going to have gained 10 or 15 pounds because we're sensory soothing with treats and snacks. So as a parent, I actually do have 4 teenagers in my home. As a parent of teens, one of the things that we're really trying to do is keep the conversation open, asking the question, how are you doing? Are you having any thoughts of harming or hurting yourself? I think that question is so important to ask. All the research shows that it does not increase suicidality to ask people if they're having suicidal thoughts. Don't be afraid to ask that question. And then loosen those guidelines a little bit and let them spend a little bit more time chatting with their friends. Let them have an extra sugary treat or, you know, some unhealthy snacks. Let them take an extra warm bath or walk outside. Now's the time for all of us to kind of lighten up. We're not in the thriving state right now where we're pursuing health at all costs. We're more in survival state. So this is the time for sensory soothing and to kind of loosen the reins. All the teenagers in the city of Pasadena just gave me a big, huge collective thank you.
Absolutely. I was going to mention too, Heather, our friend Stacy Gillespie had shared what she's doing for self-care. She says that she gets up and reads her Bible before starting work at 8 a.m. Then she's been taking breaks from working at home, enjoying her family for 15 minutes every 2 hours and doing her best to turn it off as far as work after 5:30. Said she'd love to do gardening, but she can't go out to get all the stuff. So, and then of course she did a shout out to you, Jeffrey. So thank you so much for sharing and just, you know, what you're going through, and just know that, you know, like Heather said, we're praying for you, and it's just staying connected and sharing your thoughts and your feelings and your emotions. That's really just so important. So thanks for sharing, Stacy, and prayers and shout out to you, Jeffrey.
Thank you. And I just want to say for Stacy, that gardening thing I get. So I have a gardening project that I just decided, you know what? I may not have a job in 2 or 3 weeks, but that's okay. I'm going to finish this project. You can order online at Home Depot and pick it up. They can put it in your car for you. And so there's ways to get the things that you need. Honestly, I'm worried about my husband who has asthma. So anything that comes into our house, I spray down with disinfectant, anything that I pick up. So there are ways to get your gardening done that you can order online, go pick it up and have a no contact kind of placement in your car.
Yeah.
Just so you can satisfy that need of whatever soothes you during this time of crisis.
Awesome. She did a shout out to you. She said, "Oh, I'm totally going to do that." So thanks for
Shout
sharing.
out to Stacy too.
There you go. Are there any other questions or just ways that you're trying to take care of yourself? Or like Heather said, I love her move your body. That's what I've been hearing the most of, is just you've got to keep moving to release all of those emotions. I'll share with you guys probably my all-time now best ever Christmas present. I don't know if I thought about it or realized it at the time, was my husband got me a Peloton. I will tell you that is probably right up there with my faith. That is literally saving my life. And I'm pretty competitive. So I've already achieved every challenge. I rode 150 miles, I think, the past month. I think I rode 50 miles on the weekend. And it's really cool because one of the things that Peloton has is it has scenic tours that you can go through when you're on your bike. So I've actually been picking tours through Italy, through France, through New York City, through Seattle. So that combines my exercise with my faith, because as I'm kind of on this, you know, virtual tour of these places, just knowing what they're going through with COVID-19, I'm actually to pray over their nations and their cities. So it's been a cool way for me to connect working out and just releasing all the stress and the tension and anxiety, and combine that with my faith too. So.
Hey guys, I'm here also with Melinda. Heather, I'm curious, one of the things that I and my team have talked about is the amount of information that we are taking in, and realizing that for some of us, we're going from conference call to conference call to conference call, and we are actually never giving ourselves time to download and process the information. And so do you have any tips or thoughts on how to help people recognize that and how to process the information that they're receiving as a part of this whole process?
Yeah, absolutely. That is a great point, Christina. Thanks for bringing that up. We are on information overload, and a lot of us as leaders are having to make a million decisions a second, it feels like sometimes. And on my website, I actually do have some COVID-19 tips and leadership strategies for business leaders. But to talk specifically about the pressures on our minds, that's why it's so important to engage in those 5 M's. We have to limit media. We're already taking in a lot of information that is essential. We don't have to add non-essential information. Then also those mindfulness practices. As leaders and as people are still engaged in the workforce and working every day, it is so vital for us to recognize that we have to turn off work. And that means turning off our thoughts about work, in addition to turning off the computer and moving away. So many of us are telecommuting, so our home has become our office. So it can feel like we're working all the time. I've heard from a lot of educators who say that they're working until 6 or 7 p.m., but if they were in the school day and on their campus, they would know that they need to leave and get up and go home and be with their family or make dinner. So setting boundaries around work time is really important. And that doesn't just mean get up and move away from your computer or your task. It means also turn your thoughts off of those work thoughts and engage in some of those preferred thoughts and connect with families and friends.
Mm-hmm. That's really helpful. And I did make a note. I'm going to go to your website for tips for the business leaders. It's really hard. There's actually another question for you, Heather, from Alex. Sure. She wants to know, is there any tips on how to inspire a sense of gratefulness and service with younger kids during this unusual time?
Yeah, I love that. So one of the things that my family has started doing is little sentence starters at the dinner table. We try and have dinner together around the dinner table every night. And we just have tried some sentence starters. For example, someone will say, my favorite thing about Brian is, and then we say our favorite thing about Brian out loud. And then it's Brian's turn to say his favorite thing about someone else around the table. Or the thing I'm most thankful for today is, and then it's someone else's turn to share. And we do have to have some intentionality around gratitude right now, because our reality is that there's a lot that we're enduring that's difficult. So I love that question because it shows that you're engaging intentionally with the idea of gratitude practice and thankfulness, which does help pendulate or move us away from the stress and worry of the moment. So try some sentence starters, even with little bitty children. You'll be amazed that when you give them that sentence starter, they'll be able to access things that they are grateful for or things that they do recognize and appreciate about their family members.
Great tip. Really appreciate that. And appreciate your question, Alex. And that's what I keep hearing too. And I'm sure you do as well, Heather, just really having a spirit of gratitude, just really trying to wake up with mindfulness over what am I thankful for today? Like I'm looking at Jeffrey's dog. Jeffrey, I don't know why, but you're one of the few people that Christina and I can see on the screen. I'm like, oh my goodness. Oh yeah, that would bring me a lot of gratitude right there. Feeling the love of dogs. But do any of y'all have any other questions or, any tips on what you're doing for self-care, or just really anything that is kind of on your mind, on your heart today that you want to share? We'd be happy to hear from you.
I do. Okay, so Sarah's house, actually, we're, on lockdown for the most part, but we're also limited staff, so we're limited on resources too that we used to be able to provide. Do you know if there's any resources right now that's virtual for mental health services that we can offer to the residents? Because they're going through not only just homelessness now, but also the fear of if they go to their job that they're going to get the virus, or all kinds of things now. So we're trying to find resources to help with the mental health, issues they have, but those issues those places are limited. So I was just wondering if there was like a list of places that offer virtual mental health, especially for those that don't have health insurance.
Yeah, great. Absolutely. So we do have actually at Clearhope right now, we have a team of 35 clinicians, all of whom are volunteering to do some pro bono services. So definitely call our office. We can connect you to some care, especially for mental health check-ins, screenings, and assessments. And then on the PowerPoint, I gave you the link to Mental Health America. It's a national organization, but we do have a local chapter right here in Houston. But there are just a lot of resources that they can go through for mental health. There are tools to connect with others. There's information on anxiety. There are a lot of resources to connect to here. Every resource is a link. There are online helplines, online chats that they can engage with cell phones. There are phone numbers that they can call for disaster relief all throughout all of our communities. I love what Jeffrey said. The greatness in people is really beginning to come out. So there are a lot of free resources, not just here locally in Pasadena, but all across our nation. A lot of specialists are volunteering and giving some of their time away to make sure that no one is hurting alone. So I would point you first to the MHA National website, mhanational.org. And then also definitely call our offices. We do have several therapists. I think 35 therapists on our team are all willing to volunteer some pro bono time and are doing that now. We should still have some spaces available. Take advantage of these hotlines and helplines. Those are just free resources of people who are on standby, willing to connect and offer support. Great question.
I have a question, Heather. Can we share all that information as well?
Yeah, absolutely. So I'm going to give this information to the chamber. Additionally, you can find it on my website. Every single thing that I've shared is available on clearhopewellness.com. There's a tab that says COVID-19 resources. The PowerPoint that I just shared should be there momentarily. My tech guy, who happens to be my husband, look at him, he just added it. So this is the PowerPoint that I just shared, and all the links are active, so you can click through to those. And then there are some other resources here, including the do's and don'ts for parents, homeschool teachers right now, teachers, school leadership, business leaders. If you're concerned about your child and want to know if they need to see a counselor, there's an online screening tool that you can use. But don't be afraid to use some of those resources like the hotlines and reach out and call those even today. If you need them, they are here for you. This is what this resource is for. It's for you in times of stress and anxiety. For all those people who are currently living at Sarah's house, this is a great time to use the hotline resources to connect to mental health care and support.
Hey, Heather, so you know that I am a fan of counseling and therapy. And so I think though one of the biggest barriers sometimes that comes up is actually picking up the phone and making the call and knowing what to say to start the conversation. So all of these great resources and chat lines and places that you can reach out to, I think it's the first sentence of saying, I need something, but I don't know what it is, or I need fill in the blank. So can you maybe help people understand like what's a good thing to just call and say so that they know how to practically walk through it?
Absolutely. And you can actually schedule an appointment online without needing to talk to anybody at all, just by going to the website and clicking schedule counseling services. So appointments will be available directly online. But you have to keep in mind that this is our area of expertise. This is what we do all day, every day. So when you make the call, you don't have to know anything. There's no right or wrong thing to say. You can just call and we'll ask you questions and you can give those answers. And we'll ask you if you need to see a therapist. We'll ask you if you have health insurance. We'll check your medical and health insurance benefits for you and let you know what type of coverage you have. We offer sliding scale based upon your ability to pay, your income. And then during COVID-19, we also are offering pro bono or free services to our community, especially those screenings. If you're concerned about a child and you don't have insurance, make the call. We're here to support you as a part of our community. I love that you brought that up, Christina, that one of the barriers is we just don't know what to say or what to do. And that's okay. There are experts standing by who understand that this is difficult, who will congratulate you on taking that very first step to reach out, because this is brand new for a lot of us. So when you make the call and say hello, you're going to be met with questions, and just answer the questions. And if there's anything that's not asked that you want to interject, make sure you make that known to the intake specialist.
Great, thanks, Heather. Is there any other questions? Just thank you so much for everybody that's joined us. It's Christina got it where we can now see all your faces. Some of you, we see your names, and just, Diane, I'm looking at you, and just you're also one of our Impact 2020 leadership participants, and also a principal of a school here in PISD. And just thank you for what you're doing. And I know you're a rock star, and I know you love your school, and you are so, proud of your school, and you're like, this is the best school in all of Pasadena. But I know that there was a shift. I felt it Monday morning. Of course, I'm still going into the corporate office at Better Staffing, and the only places I'm going is Better Staffing with a few people and my Pasadena Chamber family here. As you can see, Christine and I, we're not, we need to be, but we've been together for the past month. But, we are just seeing a shift when the president announced, that we're going to go through April 30th. And then, of course, and we heard from our governor and our county judge yesterday, there's just something about, I think we were very hopeful. Nick, I see you, and I know as a pastor, it's hard for me to wrap my head around too. I'm not going to be with my church family on Easter Sunday. And I know we were hopeful, but I know that behind all of this, we really did kind of feel in our gut like this is going to go on for a while. But when you hear the words and you hear the date of April 30th, and then you hear, I get goosebumps thinking about it. And then you hear school May 4th. There's just something about, hearing that we're going to be going through this another month. Is Heather, that's why you're so important to us right now, because I really do pray for and am very concerned about just the mental and emotional health of where people are at right now. And then, of course, being at Better Staffing, being in the kind of the job world, and seeing so many different industries and companies, and, hearing the stories, on the phone that our staff is having to do of people losing their jobs. So it's not just the COVID-19, it's the overwhelming emotions that we're dealing with loss of jobs. And so that's a lot. But shout out to you, Diane, and to you, Nick. You must be in your backyard hanging out, but thank you for what you do at CT Church, and just being just one of those superstar pastors. We really appreciate you. Suzette, what you do for our city. And I know I'm missing other people I can't see, but just each one of you, I just, like Heather said, just encourage you. You have, I always say the scripture that God has called us for such a time as this, and that He knew where you were going to be at this moment in time. You were called to be there. And just remember too, when you're in leadership, there's a lot of responsibility, a lot of weight that you're carrying, trying to figure out this, how to maneuver through this. And so that's why Heather and the resources that you've made available are so important for those of us who are in leadership and running businesses and, overseeing nonprofits. It is so critical right now that we take care of ourselves emotionally and mentally and spiritually, whatever, your, whatever faith you might have. It's critical, because we're leading groups of people who are scared, worried, concerned. So thank you again, Heather. And before we leave, I'm going to hand it over to my, well, I guess she's like my sister now, Christina Wambach, the president of the chamber. So
Thank you again, Heather.
Thanks, Melinda. Thanks, Heather. And thanks for all of you all for joining us this morning. As Melinda shared when we launched our first virtual coffee and conversations last Friday, we asked for topics from those that were on that call to let us know what some other webinar series would be that you guys have interest in. So we want to do that again with you all. Our executive committee is looking at some topics as well, and we have some lists, but if there's anybody that has a topic that you'd like to see us bring in an expert on and to talk through, if you want to put it in the chat, shoot us an email or let us know. We certainly can add it to the list, because for the foreseeable future, this is going to be the way that the Pasadena Chamber is able to connect with you and to share resources and partner with other members as well that are doing things. And so again, just knowing that there are resources on our chamber website related to other webinars that are going on, and Heather will add everything today that you shared, some great information from that standpoint. And I think one of the things that I also thought about was the conversation around the positive things that are happening and reminding ourselves of those things. And so most of you on the call are familiar with the launch of Discover Pasadena, the online digital show that the Chamber launched and Aaron has been managing. And so it obviously looks a little bit different right now, but we are still collecting those stories, and tomorrow we'll be doing a special edition of Discover Pasadena that Aaron is working on. And so if you're hearing good news about businesses or organizations that are connecting with folks in the community, then let us know so that we can help tell those stories, because it's important during this time to try to add something to the news feed on social media and in our email boxes that is recognizing that it's not all negative. Businesses are still opening. I was on the phone last night for about a half hour with a new small business owner opening in Pasadena, and they're having wild success right now. So there are good things happening. And so everybody be on the lookout for that and let us know. And then to Greta's point related to Sarah's house, again, one of the things that we feel led to serve our community is through connecting needs with resources. And so Julianne has been collaborating with any organizations that have a need and trying to pair those folks with organizations who are reaching out that have resources to share or to offer. And so you can see that list of need. And so thinking about gratitude and what are folks that people can do. Some things right now that are getting ready to, we're getting ready to share more widespread is, you know, having kids at home write cards to say thank you to the folks in the healthcare industry or the first responders or folks, you know, that are still working. Yeah, Greta, I see your picture there that says thank you. I love it. So we're going to be a drop-off spot for those, and are following quarantine rules on keeping paper things for 72 hours. And Liz is Lysoling and then delivering things in drop boxes without touching or talking to people. So there are still ways that we can serve other people and show gratitude and teach the kids. And so so be looking for those things. And if you have ideas, don't hesitate to reach out and to share with us, because we feel like right now at the Chamber, our purpose hasn't changed, and our purpose is still to advocate and connect our community, and doing that through educating and serving our members. And it just looks a little bit different right now. And so we appreciate you and the ability to think creatively of how we can connect with one another and serve our community during this time. And so Julianne shared in the chat information on where you can find those resources and share those positive stories, and that you can certainly reach out to any member of the team to help you as well. And so with that, we will say thank you for joining us this morning. Definitely go visit the resources. And Heather, thank you again for making those available. I think we all just gave our spouses, family members, and friends homework subconsciously of things to listen to and then also start doing themselves. So we appreciate you and your willingness to lead in our community during this time through Clearhope Counseling and Clearhope Wellness. So thank you so much. And thank you to everybody else for joining us. be sure to share the information with the folks so that we can all collectively be mindful of how to cope during the challenges of the COVID pandemic. Y'all have a great day and hope that we see you on Friday for coffee and conversations.
She did a good job.